Brilliant. Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, just to give you a bit of a rundown, Ian's with us. I've got you online now, Ian, just bear with me. Just to give everybody a bit of an introduction to who Ian is and what his involvement with Freedom Central is tonight is we met Ian a few weeks ago during his recent trip to the Netherlands, and we are delighted that he has been speaking to Robert Greig daily about Robert's trial. So Ian will be taking us through the details. Just for those of you who may be new to the story, Robert Greig is a gentleman pursuing justice for Hollie Greig, a Down syndrome sufferer who has been brutally raped and abused by senior figures in Scotland, and the level to which the Scottish authorities have gone to cover up this scandal is absolutely appalling, and not to mention shutting Robert up. It's completely farcical, and in fact this week was the first week of Robert's trial for apparently breaching the peace that has now cost the Scottish taxpayer over £500,000, all because he was trying to help a disabled girl who's been preyed on by paedophiles. Okay, so Ian, tell us what's been going on for week one.
Right, well, I think before I start, if it's okay, if I could just say
yes.
A couple of things, please, just very quickly. First of all, it's important just so people know, I don't actually formally speak on behalf of Robert or his legal team, or indeed Anne or Hollie at all. I'm just a member of the general public, what's come to be known as Hollie's Army, which is basically anyone who's got a growing interest and a level of involvement, whether that simply be sharing links on Facebook or taking more direct action. So anyone who's sort of interested, if you like, I come in that little bracket. I haven't got any legal privilege or anything like that, but yes, obviously I've been speaking to Robert and been getting updates here and there, and I think on that point what I also have to say is Robert, every time people speak about the case, you know, one thing Robert always does, and I think is important I do it as well, is the level of interest and the level of, in some cases, people putting themselves in quite dangerous positions that's going on with this case, with the members of the public who follow this. Robert would, I'm sure, really want to thank everyone for their involvement, whether it be more high-profile people like yourself with your shows, or just members of the public who are trying to raise awareness for this. And those are the people that are probably in more danger than anyone else because they've got nothing else backing them up other than the truth. So that's quite important there. Excuse me. The other thing is, people often with this case have been saying, well, so does it show that X, Y and Z are guilty of the offences that Hollie is committing? Hollie is alleging has been committed against her. That is not the point of this trial. It's important to point this out, and Robert's raised this as well in the past. This trial is only about trying to work out if Robert's actions have in any way harmed or distressed the people who are named as being allegedly involved in some sort of paedophile attacks on Hollie, or indeed the people who have been named by Hollie as other victims. So that's what the trial is about. In other words, breach of the peace causing harm or distress to the people who have been named. So it's a quite important point. People are often looking at this case from the point of view of just how guilty certain people look, and that's not the point of this trial at all. And the other thing is, of course, as you've no doubt seen now in this case this week, and no doubt in the week coming, pretty much anything can happen. It's early days yet still. Robert's very upbeat, very positive, but he's also very, very realistic. Things can really turn on a coin here. So, but so far, it's been quite farcical, I have to say. So shall I go on with the day-to-day events?
Please do, yes.
Okay. Well, on day one, normal procedure would have been opening legal arguments and finding out who's who and, what's your name, where do you live, what's your date of birth, that sort of stuff. And obviously it came to Robert and he was asked for his name, and he threw a spanner in the works almost immediately by stating that he'd be quite happy to answer that question, but he wanted to know if members of the prosecution team and the judge, or the sheriff as they're called in Scotland, were members and accepted Freemasons. Now, that sort of stumped people quite quickly there, especially the judge. After a little bit of discussion, the prosecution prosecution team all confirmed that they were not Freemasons in any way, shape or form. Sheriff Bowen, the man, and there's no jury, by the way, in this trial. It's only the sheriff who will make the deciding ruling on Robert's fate. This man refused to confirm or deny whether he was a Freemason. Now, draw your own conclusions from that, but it's interesting, you know, if you're not a member and you've really got no interest in it, well, okay, fine, I'm not a Freemason, let's move on. He's refused to do that. Now, that's led on to the prosecution trying to argue that, as far as Robert's concerned and his legal team, one of the key people to call as a witness is a woman by the name of Dame Elise Angelini. She's recently received a damehood from the Queen last year, but she was the lady, it's been established, who put out the arrest warrant for Robert Greig. Well, we say arrest warrant. It took a long time to actually see a copy of it. We've never seen the original, but she put out the order, if you like, to arrest Robert back in February 2010, which led to the trial that we've got today. The prosecution tried to say that the reason for Dame Elise Angelini not to be called is that her presence in the trial and her reason for being in court was, as they put it, irrelevant. Now, as you can probably imagine, this was met with some laughter in the public gallery, and it took a little while for the judge to calm things down a little bit before things could continue. And that matter is still being debated, if you like. The sheriff eventually said that he would consider whether Mrs. Angelini should be called as a witness once the prosecution have finished presenting their case and bringing all their witnesses, and before Robert's team has a chance to put their case forward. So, if you like, he will clarify that sort of matter as the defence is about to start their presentation. He's not mentioned any more about his or not involvement in Freemasonry, so that's something that Robert may or may not draw on at a later point. Now, on the same day, still on the first day, the sheriff noted that in the past, over the last couple of years leading up to this case, as, should we say, things got a little bit tough, or even pre-trial hearings were going ahead, Robert's legal teams, as plural, as you said, more than one, seem to have a habit of bailing out at the last minute. They do some sterling work. You cannot refute that. They really have put a lot of effort and really committed themselves to this trial. But when push came to shove, they bail out. And the sheriff said at the end of the first day that he noted that, and that if this happens again during this trial at any stage, Robert will have to represent himself. Now, this is completely illegal, as Robert had, even under Scottish law, which corrupt as it may be, Robert has a legal right to a proper legal representation throughout the entire trial. So obviously he will contest that vigorously, but hopefully that's not going to happen, because it has to be said, his legal team at the moment, given that they've only come in the last literally days before this trial was the first time they got access to any of this information, they have been totally dedicated and focused on what they're doing. They're just like Robert, they're very realistic, they know what the stakes are, they know what's involved here and the people involved here, but they are doing what they are paid to do. So hopefully this issue of whether Robert has to defend himself or not will not come to pass anyway. But it's interesting that the judge should even consider making that statement. So that basically was the end of day one there. Shall I continue on to the
Yes, please.
Okay, just so you know, my computer's quite old, so if there are any technical glitches, just bear with me here, okay?
Don't worry, we they always are on our show, just because we always have gremlins behind the scenes, so no worries about that. If there's any breakdowns, we'll just get you back on the air, we'll call you back, so carry on here, no problem.
Alright, okay, right, now day two, some more witnesses were called by the prosecution, obviously, and Robert's actually quite impressed with the speed at which things are going along. There's very little attempt to delay with legal wranglings and technicalities and all that sort of thing. Basically, people are getting on with the job, because at the end of the day, it's been pretty much 2 years now. £500,000 of the Scottish taxpayers' money's been wasted on this. So, you know, let's just get the job done. And he's quite happy with the speed that this case is going along, and so is his team as well. So a few more people were called, and one of them, who was probably the most unconvincing of the day, was the head teacher of one of the special schools that Hollie Greig went to as a child, a man called Andrew Young. Now, he's an interesting character, to say the least, for other reasons as well, but according to the reports from the court, he was certainly evasive and even contradicted himself on occasions when being questioned, even by his own side, if you like. You know, he was stating he couldn't remember certain things, didn't believe that Hollie was at the school when he was the head teacher, although that's simply not true. She was. So that's... it's no wonder he was a little uneasy at the time. And so basically, he certainly looked quite uncomfortable, if you like, and was the most unconvincing of all the witnesses. I should say also, with regards to witnesses, they are not just the people who are alleged to have been abusing Hollie, but also those who have, been identified as victims as well. Now, just in case people are wondering, there are reasons why we can't go into that side of things, but from the point of view of the people who are being called as witnesses, both alleged victims and alleged perpetrators, at the moment it's come as no surprise to Robert that basically all of the alleged perpetrators, as you'd expect, would say, no, I didn't do it, and even some of the victims are saying, I don't know what you're talking about, it never happened to me. That has come as no surprise to Robert, but there are reasons for that which we can't go into at the moment. Now, one of the other people on day 2 who was called as a witness was probably the most high-profile. Was one of the most high-profile alleged perpetrators, which is a man by the name of Sheriff Graham Buchanan. So he gave evidence on behalf of the prosecution, and basically, in answer to the question, did you ever touch Hollie Greig? Obviously, no, I didn't. But also, it's interesting to note that even him, he's a QC, serving at the moment, serving QC, him all the way through to all the other witnesses, no one has actually provided any, should we say, solid evidence that can actually show that what Robert is alleged to have done, which I'll come on to in a moment, has caused them any direct harm, loss, or anything like that. So basically, what they're saying is what he's done, we don't like it, and it's difficult for us to look at our neighbours in the face and things like that. Nobody is saying there's been bricks through my window, or I was shopping in Tesco's and somebody punched me in the face, or anything like that. None of that at all.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that with regards to what he's supposed to have done. He was arrested in February 2010 for intending to hand out some A5 size leaflets naming the alleged members of the elite paedophile ring in Scotland, particularly in Aberdeen. He was obviously stopped, so he never actually got to do that, but he's also charged with naming them publicly at a public meeting a few weeks beforehand as well, which obviously he did do. Now, interestingly, at the same time, just before he was about to hand out these leaflets, which he never got around to doing, a website was also publishing that leaflet, and until very recently was still publishing it. Now, I say very recently, it looks as though that website has actually been hacked into, and shall we say, the anti-position that individual has taken has now been corrected and is now a pro-position. But this person was basically an infiltrator and trying to undermine the case. But they were actually advertising or showing on their website this leaflet, and that website was 24 hours a day, internationally accessible all around the planet on the internet. Now, surely that would have had more harm to the alleged perpetrators than Robert Greig wanting to hand out a few leaflets, which, let's face it, on a Saturday afternoon, most people would just take it politely, say thank you very much, carry on with their shopping, and just drop it on the floor.
Absolutely.
So, but however, he has named them previously as well. But this case, it's very important to remember, this case is about what level of harm he has caused these people with regards to breach of the peace. Now, staying with day 2 still, one of the things that was established by one of the police officers, and this is really important, what's been established is that, as most people who follow the case know, Hollie's father and brother were both named by Hollie as the initial abusers, and then it went on from there. And those two eventually were interviewed by the police. However, a lot of other people were named by Hollie as abusers. Now, it's been established on day 2 in open court on the record that the police, Grampian police, did not interview anyone else named by Hollie. Now, that means that the police have failed in their sworn legal duty to properly investigate the claims made by Hollie, and that was made in 2000 and 2009, okay? And therefore, the police, Grampian police, have also failed in protecting possible victims who were named by Hollie from further abuse, let alone, obviously, other children who may not be victims at the time, but because alleged perpetrators are still at large, may soon become victims. And they have also failed in their duty of serving and protecting the people to serve and protect the accused by going through due process and allowing the accused through proper procedures to clear their name through the proper channels. Now, this, whichever way you look at it, is a dereliction of duty on the part of Grampian police, perverting the course of justice, depending on how you want to look at it, potentially assisting and facilitating in a cover-up, if there is one established, and the police officers themselves possibly being guilty of something called vicarious liability. In other words, they become knowledgeable of a crime and do nothing about it. And that applies to the police as much as it does a member of the public. So this confirmation, whilst we're obviously talking about Robert's case here, actually brings us back to what this is all revolving around, which is Anne and Hollie. And that in itself puts us Anne and Hollie in a position, if they want to either take legal action or sue Grampian police for their dereliction of duty. Also, it brings into the frame at the very least, the ability of some of the politicians involved here, such as Alex Salmond in Scotland and Kenneth Clarke in England, who have throughout maintained that a thorough investigation has been carried out by Grampian police into the claims made by Hollie. Now, we now have that on the record that that is not true. So why would the politicians be saying that if all that it would seem, at best, all they're doing is calling up the police and saying, did you carry out an investigation? Yes, we did, thank you very much. And then replying saying that the investigation has been carried out. If they would look into the facts, they would find out, no, they haven't, and that's now been established. The other thing that comes out of this, finally, for day 2, is that Shropshire Council, for some time, has been successfully holding what you might call a gagging order over Anne and Hollie Greig with regards to speaking in public about their case, or even attending venues where their case is discussed in any way. So, for instance, if Robert Greig were at Trafalgar Square talking about the case, they are not allowed to be present. So that's a human rights issue there, implied over them by the basically secret and therefore illegal family courts of England on the behest of Shropshire Council. Now, as we've established, the police have not carried out proper investigation, so that should get Shropshire Council to rethink their position on that ruling, because basically their argument was that Hollie and Anne, particularly Hollie, are being exploited on the grounds that that there is no foundation for the accusations. 3.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second, Ian. Is everything all right there?
Everything's fine.
Yep, just having a technical check. It seems that our server is under attack because of our interview with you, for whatever reason. Can you believe it? Yeah, it's happened the last time we interviewed Robert, funny enough, online as well. Okay, carry on. Where are we? Day 3.
Okay, day 3, right,
yep.
Okay. Okay, well, day 3, basically a continuation of what was going on yesterday with various people being called as witnesses. Now, one of the interesting witnesses was from Grampian Police, a lady called DC Lisa Evans. Lisa Evans, DC Lisa Evans, was the lady who interviewed Hollie Greig on the 8th of September 2009. It was just her and Hollie in a room, and Robert Greene, in full knowledge of Lisa Evans, was sitting outside taking notes, basically listening in. And I don't know if you know, but Hollie Greig has quite bad hearing, and so unlike your average sort of conversation, the volume of the voices was quite high, and so it wasn't that difficult for Robert, with the little partition door that was there, to listen in and hear pretty much every word that was said. Now, whilst he was sitting outside, I'm just giving you a little bit of background here because this is quite important, and there's a bit of a scoop on this one.
Yeah.
Because, so are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. There's a bit of a scoop on this because I was talking to Robert yesterday, and some information came out as well, which is going to be followed up in court. But he's okay with me to give you this now. So if your server goes down, sorry. Right. So yes, what was happening was, on the 8th of September 2009, DC Lisa Evans was interviewing Hollie Greig in Shropshire by obviously Lisa Evans, the Grampian Police. And for about 3.5 hours was sitting there going over all the people who had allegedly abused her, all the people that she had seen be abused, and what their connections were, and obviously how she knew who they were, what they did as jobs, when it happened. All the details. Took a long time, and Robert got it all down. That evening he then went home and transcribed all those quickly scrawled notes into another book, which is a little bit more legible, and put it to one side basically, and just, because obviously thinking, oh good, the police have now got it straight from the horse's mouth, they're obviously going to investigate, which they didn't. Now, a little while later, in February 2010, when Robert Greene had been arrested, his home was raided. His home in Cheshire was raided, and this was all carried out under the instructions, or the behest, if you like, of the Lord Advocate Elisha Angelini, Dame Elisha Angelini, as she is now. During that raid, Robert's home computer was taken, a few legal papers related to other cases that Robert is dealing with, because Robert's not just dealing with Hollie Greig, he does other things as well. He's got his own personal life, and he's quite a busy man. And also, both of those books were taken with crucial information. Now, interestingly, one of the officers who conducted that cross-border raid was DC Lisa Evans. Now, you might think, okay, there's no problem with that, the police got a job to do. But interestingly, there's a normal procedure would have it. You would make an inventory list of everything that is taken. So if you take, say, 5 CDs, you don't just list the ISBN number of the CD case. You also record what CD disc is inside, because they may not be, what they appear to be on the cover. So all these things have to be meticulously detailed in an inventory list. No such list was made during that raid, which under Scottish law may not actually be illegal, strangely enough. Now, these 2 documents, like I say, which are absolutely crucial, because they validate everything Robert has been saying to date, with a police witness taking their own almost identical notes. So this whole case should never have come about, because there's your corroboration, the police and the public getting it directly at the same time from the same person, you know, case closed basically. These documents, these two booklets have gone missing. Because it was established in the court that day that they were of importance, and given that DC Lisa Evans was struggling to remember what was taken from the home and struggling to remember exactly what Hollie had said to her, which of course if she had her notes with her she wouldn't have any trouble with that, but she didn't. It was decided, well, maybe we need to see the notes that Mr. Green has made. So there was a postponement, and the legal and prosecution team and Robert were rummaging through the papers and documents and various bits and pieces to try and find either the physical document or copies of it. Now, the only thing that was actually in the documentation, there was a very poor quality copy of the first document, not the second one. But like I say, it was very poor quality. Now, so difficult to read, you know, and not really easy to understand, especially given that Robert was writing it quickly. Well, in speaking to Robert yesterday, what I can confirm now, which is going to be obviously picked up quite strongly when the case starts again tomorrow and during the rest of the week, is this was actually established at the end of day 4. So I'm just putting this in here now, even though it's day 3 that we're talking about. At the end of day 4, it was established. Robert did ask his prosecution team, look, you know, this book is absolutely crucial. They did take it, and it was established in court under questioning that Lisa Evans did see these books. So they do exist. Where are they? They've been taken. You need to push for this. So the prosecution, the defence QC, Mr. Lamb, went to the prosecution and pushed them on this basically, and came back to Robert and said, the book, the first book that you made all your notes in, does exist, and they have had it all along, even while they were in court.
Oh, no.
So there they are, all standing around, rummaging through papers, saying, well, where is it? I don't know. Can you see? Oh, maybe it's over there. Perhaps it's in this bundle. And all the time they've got it.
Unbelievable. Oh, my goodness. It just gets thicker and thicker. Well, it shouldn't surprise any of us, really.
Exactly. But now the important thing here is that, first of all, now Robert, you know, he doesn't really have to make too much effort now, because all the evidence obviously can present itself, because his notes should, in theory, back up exactly what DC Evans took down, provided she has not falsified documents.
Yes.
But another important point here is that the Crown prosecution have willfully and knowingly withheld vital evidence. That is absolutely crucial to point out here. In other words, their very credibility is at stake here now.
Okay, all right. But now, how are we actually looking for this case? There was a day 5, wasn't there, as well?
No, day 5 was, it didn't actually go ahead because there was, prior to the case starting, there was a death in the family of one of the legal people involved, and so just sort of compassionate leave, if you like, or whatever. Day 5 didn't go ahead, but day 4 did, which was quite a short day as well. And day 4 basically was involving technical experts with regards to the stuff that was on Robert's computer and a few other sort of minor facts and figures, if you like. 1 or 2 more witnesses, and DC Evans again being questioned. Now, what had happened prior to going back to day 3 here, there was quite a bit of arguing backwards and forwards, and even in private backwards and forwards between the legal camps with regards to DC Evans and questions that Robert Green's defence wanted to put to DC Evans. And the prosecution was trying to say, no, you can't do that. Well, they managed to successfully agree to, managed to successfully get those questions asked. And one of them being, did you see these notebooks that Robert Green's referring to, and DC Evans' answer was yes. Now, that basically means she's seen the documents, she knows they exist, they were taken from the premises, and so where are they? Is DC Evans guilty of theft? Is it just simply gross misconduct? Is it incompetency? Is it, what is it? Basically, she has questions to answer in perhaps a different case altogether. Andrew Lamb, QC, who's the defence for Robert Greig, who's come in right at the last minute here, and again, I have to stress Robert's view here is that Andrew Lamb and the entire legal team he's got now, given that literally at the 11th hour they've come in, have been doing an absolutely sterling job. They really have. So he's been pushing quite strongly here. Interestingly, as part of the defence, DC, or he's now Sergeant, Stuart Drummond, was questioned, and he was one of the people who was talking about the information that was on Robert's case, on Robert's computer, in respect to the case that Robert is currently fighting, i.e. breach of the peace. Now, his evidence was along the lines of Robert breaking his bail conditions by speaking about things that were already in the public arena. Now, again, this is quite important. The prosecution are really on the back foot here. They're trying to do anything they can to get people to stop thinking, has Robert Greig caused any harm to the people previously named? Obviously, the answer to that is no. Let's face it, when Elise Angelini was first identified, she was Lord Advocate. Well, now she's a Dame, so that certainly hasn't harmed her career. And also, by the way, by trying to steer things in a particular direction, now Sergeant Drummond was one of the officers who was sent to arrest Robert on the 12th of February 2010. So the people involved in questioning Hollie and raiding Robert's home, and they're linked up here. You've got DC Drummond, who was also part of the arrest team, and then after that going through his computer. So it all seems to be the same names coming up over and over again. And yet, when it comes to solid evidence, what harm have you actually done? Well, Robert's team is still waiting to actually see what Robert is supposed to have done that is so terrible.
Yeah.
And also the other thing, day 5, like I say, because the death in the family, it was suspended, so it starts again tomorrow morning. I think it's 10 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Oh well, you know what, all we can do is wish Robert the best, and it sounds like a pretty interesting trial so far. I mean, it's very interesting indeed, Ian. Glad to see that at least it's bringing up some other aspects which will hopefully be dealt with and go in favour of Hollie in the end.
Yeah, I mean, certainly what's coming out here openly and on the record can only benefit Anne and Hollie. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
From the legal point of view, I don't think there's anything I'm in a position to know, other than, again, just to reiterate, to those people that feel that they're not doing anything, or, they really wish they could be involved, or, is Robert aware that we're thinking of him? Please believe me, Robert, he is fully aware of everyone that is involved here, that is trying to help out in their own private little way, or even just thinking about him, and Anne and Hollie as well. All of them know the level of support that is there around the world, not just in the UK. So, from Robert, a big thank you to everyone.
Brilliant. And we have a big thank you to say to Robert. It's not every day that we come across such inspiring people. It's Robert often thanks us for the work that we do, but we say if it wasn't for people like him, we wouldn't be inspired to do what we do. And we're ever so grateful for the true heroes that are out there, fighting for vulnerable people, the sick and the vulnerable of our society.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, yeah.
All right, Ian, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, and we'll speak to you again soon. Stick around. We've got Santos Bonacci joining us in the second hour, so it should be fun.
It's a fascinating guy. I'm going to listen in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyway, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.